This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net, your choice for the conservative voice. This is Carol Parisi, and our founder, Jack Roser, and myself today have a very special guest with us. It's Mr. Jim Edwards, who is the executive director of the Republican Renaissance PAC, and I know that you and Mr. Roser know each other very well, so what say you, Jack, about Mr. Edwards and the Republican Renaissance
I got
PAC?
a lot to say about this guy.
I'm not surprised.
For one reason.
Keep it clean, Jack.
Well, he's a political sophisticate. You were mayor of what town?
Sycamore.
Sycamore, Illinois. When they needed a good mayor, and he came in and did a lot to improve the administration of the town and get it on a better thing. And he's got a long experience in the furniture business of nationally, going around and installing better people to get better results, finding better leadership. He's a big guy in leadership, and I've known him a number of years, and you can't find a more solid, decent, hard-working guy than Jim Edwards here. And he's on the payroll, and he's putting in every day and more on putting together the team that's going to take back the legislature. You said our motto is 6 + 6 - 1. The -1 is get rid of that guy Madigan out of there. The 6 + 6 is 6 more in the House and Senate. And that can only be done if we have a bunch of good candidates in various tier levels, the best ones we can get to do the 6 and the next best and the next best. We can't read the future of all that good on all these people. Some may turn out to be better than others from money or circumstance or the luck of the draw or somebody being particularly good for the place. But we're doing our best to get 1, 2, and 3 level people to fill in. How many people have we got on our list that we're working with? Probably 40 or 50.
40 or 50, and then Chicago is a whole separate operation in there that we can talk about. But
Republicans in Chicago?
Yeah, and but we had talked about earlier that that it was kind of scary when they did the redistricting, because most people in the state thought that and obviously the Democrats did it to their advantage, and it's the most Mickey Mouse thing you could ever imagine. If you look at Iowa, districts are like squares, but in Illinois they have spider webs and all these, they stretch out into...
Madigan did a terrible thing when he organized that, because Madigan's the author of most of the troubles. There's a bunch of idiot Democrats staggering around, but Madigan isn't staggering around. He's rich, he's got a ton of money, and he's got a lot of political brains. I thought long ago he'd wake up and say, what have I done to my wonderful state of Illinois? But he never did, and he never will. He's just corrupted the whole thing, and I'm not accusing him of a felony, but the results couldn't be worse. We're the most broke of all of the 50 states, and we got the reputation for being the most crooked.
That's
so
right. That's
he
right.
wears the jacket for having created that.
And Jack, you mentioned many times in the past when you were early on in Chicago, it used to be the lead in all these different industries. If you couldn't get a job in Chicago, you couldn't get a job anywhere.
Right.
Illinois was a thriving state, and Madigan has been in the position to take it down. I can't imagine going to my deathbed if I was Michael Madigan, wondering what's in store for me after what he did to this
myself. How could that man not realize what he'd done? Does he ever say to himself, I'm the maximum leader of the Democrats in this wonderful state of Illinois, and I'm going to see that things come out well, whether they reflect badly or whatever? That should be the mission of a man that has as much power and money as Madigan. But there isn't a shred of decency left in them. Just think that the people that have neighbors that are running as Democrats in this coming election. They may be that rare thing of your father's Democrat, like we used to have Democrats that cared about this country and this state and sacrificed their time and wealth to do good things. Well, that's pretty much gone because we got a bunch of crooked rats that have got a motto: we don't want nobody sent. It's all about your political influence and who's going to do business and where the money comes from. It's rotten that he hasn't ever stood up and done it. He's just made himself the symbol of the corruption and the maladjustment of everything in this state that's run to hell with the Democrats in charge.
Well, how long has he been in power for? I don't mean to interrupt, but...
Well, 40 years.
40 or so
40
years.
years.
And could you imagine? I mean, the state is in such bad shape under his leadership. But, Jack, we talked about this the other day, that I would be embarrassed to run as a Democrat in this state because the Democrats as a whole, under Madigan's leadership, have wrecked this state. How could you even feel good about being out in public running as a Democrat
Well,
right
People
now?
should
Illinois is a
realize
laughing
that even if their neighbor is a good guy and would be a good Democrat if it weren't for the pressure that's put on from Madigan. You might be a good guy and you might feel friendly to him, but realize he's going to go down there and vote to put Madigan back in power.
That's right.
So no matter how good a guy some
exactly
Democrat
right.
might be, he
Your
doesn't
first
deserve
vote
to go down
will
there.
be for Madigan.
I want to jump in here and just kind of frame for the listeners what takes place when a newly elected politician goes to Springfield, whether it's Republican or Democrat. They go down there, and there are non-aggression pacts that are signed with the Democrats. Madigan says, you vote for this, vote for this. We won't run anybody against you for the next 4 years. Now, do you doubt for a minute that the IEA has people that are going up to these new politicians and saying, man, that was a tough campaign?
Listen, you can just stop that talk right now because you couldn't possibly cover all of the different ways that guy has manipulated those things you're mentioning.
Yeah.
He's organized completely. He is running it. He's wearing the shirt for having done what's happened
But Jake,
downstate.
you mentioned something, that this is not your father's or your grandfather's Democratic Party.
Right.
This Democratic Party has moved so far left, and make no mistake, it all comes from Chicago, the Chicago-style politics, having Saul Alinsky and everybody else. And you know what? Illinois was a good, vibrant, wonderful state, but they've taken it down from the inside out.
You say Chicago went down, and they certainly organized it, and it's still that way.
Yes.
It's organized for stealing the vote. The jokes and so forth are kind of sick because the world knows this is the most crooked.
What do you call it?
Downstate, you had better Democrats for quite a long while, much better ones. I'm thinking of one of my relatives, a grand old man that lived to be over 100 years old. A great guy. But your father's Democrat is largely gone, and the Democrats themselves know it. And in Chicago and a lot of the state, they realize they've got to change this thing. And with the way it can be changed, and we have a great optimism, we do, that started 2 years ago when we saw what Madigan had done with the new districts that were supposed to shove the Republicans into areas where they couldn't win. We've looked at this thing and learned the kind of people that are out there. He's vetted them with a list of the things that they stand for. The people that Jim has got on our list have personally been talked to and looked at the different things they should stand for if they love the state of Illinois or not.
Well, how can you have optimism in Illinois? How can you be optimistic in Illinois?
Well, we're very optimistic.
Yeah, we are.
Aren't we, Jim?
We are. I mean,
we really
all that
think we can
negative
win
stuff
this
about Madigan and the redistricting, you know, that is bad stuff. But then along come candidates, like many of the candidates that we have vetted, and they're not all perfect. I mean, we have had candidates that we've vetted that were opportunists, just looking for jobs that we're not going to support. But there are so many outstanding people of character that are running on the Republican ticket this time around. That's what is encouraging. And these people are out there in their communities working hard. There's a new data system that the party has put in that they're working hard this summer. And usually the campaigns don't really kick into full gear until the fall. These guys are working hard this summer, They're out there at events, they're knocking on doors, but it's the quality of people that are impressing us. And a lot of them have small business backgrounds, so they understand the difference between a debit and credit. Many of them have their own businesses so that they have signed the fronts of the checks, which is a whole different world in understanding.
Signing the front of the check.
Yeah.
Making payrolls and making ends meet. That gives you training that is desperately needed in Springfield.
You know, Jim, we're going to be going to break here in about 10 seconds. And I know when we come back from break, you're talking about vetting the candidates. You've met with these candidates. I want to hear a little bit more about what your vetting process is. You're talking about character. You know what? Leadership is character. You know, we're going to hear from Mr. Edwards about these candidates, who, what, where, how, why, and when we come back after the break. Stay with us.